Welcome to the Conscious Investor. Let's get started. I'm so excited to be, sharing space today, once again, this entire week with Tate Siemer. If you missed the previous episode, we dove into who is Tate, and you need to go back and listen to it because I haven't had a single guest answer this question of like, who are you, in a more thoughtful way ever. So Tate, I want to thank you for, just taking us deep into thought and awareness about who. It helps everybody reflect on our own understanding of who we are. But today I am so stoked to be able to talk about, what single mindset shift you made. We've all made lots of them, but what has changed your life mindset wise?
You bet. Well, I would say there's two things. Two major mindset shifts in business, and then one that was kind of business and life in general.
That's
that
good.
I'll
That's
highlight.
How you got off the hook, right? Because I said one, but you're like, no, I'm doing one, but I'm doing it from different categories. So
I think, and they tie together. So the first one is just getting my head around the idea that I could be a apartment purchaser and put a team together and all the resources we need and everything else to buy an apartment community at a large scale. Getting my head into that to that point took some time, and it took a lot of education and conferences and podcasts and audiobooks, and just absorbing all the knowledge that I could to get the confidence to speak the language, and then to go out and start forming relationships.
But I have to
process.
I gotta go. We gotta back up the truck here for a second.
Sure.
But why would you want to be an apartment investor? I mean,
yeah.
Why not do self-storage, or why not, invest in single family, fix and flip, all the other asset classes in real estate, let alone anything else under the sun, crypto,
Yeah. I mean, this is just a fantastic question and topic. And, you and I both could do a long episode about why apartments, but I'll just put it into a nutshell if I can. The apartment, the commercial multifamily asset class, which is 5 units or more in one property, offers, in my opinion, so many benefits that are not found in any sort of other asset class other than maybe self-storage. You mentioned self-storage, and possibly like RV parks and that group, those sorts of investments. They can do sort of the same thing that apartments can do, but the universality of need for housing, and particularly right now with the demand for housing and the lack of supply, makes apartments a really good place to be in terms of being an investor and having capital in cash flowing assets. And so I look, if you're buying good assets, they're ideally going to be cash flowing nicely. They're going to be paying down debt. They're going to be paying investors nice returns, and they're going to be paying the expenses of the property. And at the same time, if you're able to force equity or force appreciation, meaning simply increasing the net operating income by either raising rents, reducing expenses, or otherwise enhancing the income of the property, you are exponentially increasing the value of the property. And in commercial real estate, it's a mathematic formula. It's not comps. It's not like single family. It's like, if you can add $100 a month to the rents at 150 units, that at a 5 cap, it's going to be, I don't know what it is, $3-4 million probably worth of equity that you're forcing. And that is powerful, and I can't find that. We haven't seen that in any other asset classes. And we come from single family flipping, developing land deals, ground up development, and everything that we did until we started doing apartments was, in my opinion, speculative by definition. We were buying assets that we were counting on selling for a certain amount more than what we were buying for without having that in the bag, right? So it's speculative. And purchasing cash flowing multifamily assets that have a history of cash flow, that have a current rent roll, that has tenants that are paying and has, is decently run, is just, it's one of a kind. It's not speculative anymore. You're doing the Robert Kiyosaki rich dad poor dad thing. You're acquiring cash flowing assets. So it's really exciting. And then there's tax benefits. There are, you can talk about, leverage, how you can use a fairly small, relatively small amount of money to buy quite a big asset that, and leverage, capital well. You can leverage your team well. You can leverage property managers well, all in the name of providing the best housing that you can for your tenants and residents, and providing the best returns that you can to your investors. So we love it. Like, there's other things as well, like risk mitigation. We kind of touched on that a little bit, but you can kind of go on and on with the exciting advantages of multifamily.
You can. And so ultimately that's what led you into the multifamily is, okay, I looked at the asset classes. I was already involved in these, and I could see this is so much more powerful. So you have this shift in your thinking, but how is that shift in your personal thinking? Because you said that they are linked together.
Well, it was interesting, the kind of the process or the trajectory that got us to where we are and where we ended up doing multifamily was kind of a rocky road. And in particular, we did a couple of ground up development projects that did not go well. And for numerous reasons, ultimately we were the owners and developers. So the buck stops with us, but let's just say we didn't necessarily have the best help that we and advice that we could have gotten. And it was just kind of it was a project that was a reach for us to do. And we, at the time, we were really eager to get into that space and just excited to do deals. And they ended up taking, this is one of the problems. They ended up taking about 2.5 years from the time that we put them under contract to breaking ground, to building, to marketing and selling and closing, was the better part of 3 years, which is
almost 3. Two is
ridiculous.
Two is fairly common.
Yeah, it's 2's even long. But that said, like, it was and things started going sideways with these projects right out of the gate. Like, there were $50,000 items here that we didn't catch, and then this there, and just, again, we could do a whole episode on those projects. But I'll just summarize by saying that they were hands down the most difficult thing that I've ever been through professionally, because they were losers out of the gate, and we knew it. We didn't know it out of the gate, but we knew it pretty soon, after 6 months after things started kind of going sideways, and we knew we were looking at probable losses, and it was a painful process. And there were weeks that it seemed like every single day there was something new that came up, and so during this process, I went to Dealmaker Live with Michael Blanc, and Hal Elrod was one of the keynote speakers. And I had read The Miracle Morning, I think, at that point. So I knew who he was. And if you haven't read The Miracle Morning or listened to it, like, by all means do. It's game changer. But I think an even bigger game changer is his first book, which is called The Miracle Equation. Actually, I think he wrote it first, but published it second or something like that. But The Miracle Equation is money. Like, everybody here listening should check that book out. And the equation itself is simply unwavering effort, unwavering faith plus extraordinary effort equals miracles. So unwavering faith plus extraordinary effort equals miracles. And like, we were in a pretty dark place with these townhomes, like 60-70% of the way through them, in that we didn't have any idea how we were going to get out of them at the end. And we knew that we were looking at some significant losses. And that's like a pretty uncomfortable place to be. And it really came down to like, all right, this is either going to like take us out and really, or knock us really far down, or I'm just going to have faith that it's going to work out somehow. And I'm going to keep moving forward with our commercial multifamily ventures. And sure enough, we got a 20 unit during that process through one of those projects, through one of the new build projects. We found a 20 unit apartment building here in Utah that we're about to sell. We're about full cycle on. And, nice. And it's been a absolute grand slam. And it's basically like mitigating everything from the new builds that we did. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we're back to square one if you just look at those two projects. But, you know, in the meantime, we've closed on 352 units and this year in 2021. And we've got, I think it's roughly 250 under contract that we're be closing in the next 3 weeks. One's closing in a week. So, you know, we've really moved past the morass of yuckiness that we were in and are on to
let me ask you
much bigger things. Yeah.
How do you move past that? Because that is a psychological, when you are dealing with that mindset, that psychology behind, I had investors, they counted on me, they believed in this project, and now it's not going as planned. And now I want to grow in this capacity. How did, you know, and then you mentioned, you know, how Elrod and going to Dealmaker Live, how did all of that help you push beyond? Was it the miracle equation? Just saying like, no, I'm just going to do even more.
It was like, look, there's two things you got to focus. There's only two things you got to worry about. One is faith. And, you know, all of us have a different kind of concept of faith in our heads, I think. But for me, faith is it is like rock solid knowing that something that you can't see right now is going to happen or materialize or whatever is going to work out. And in this case, it was like always going back to like, okay, I don't know how it is going to work out, but it is going to work out somehow. And, you know, it's still working out. Like it has worked out in great ways. And what we have in the pipe is like, you know, 40x where we were, you know, when we started those projects. So how you get through it is like, so you got the two things, right? You've got the faith and you got to just like, and it's a tester, right? Like if it's not faith, if it's not really, really testing, because you know, it's the whole unseen thing, right? Like, you know, whether that's something that you want to have happen in the future or whatever, like having faith in something unseen is like, that's real. Like that's when life gets real. And when you're suffering and there's pain going on, to step into a place of faith that this is going to work itself out somehow, if and when I put forth extraordinary effort. That's all I have to worry about. are those two things. So, and I know for me, it was a no-brainer because I know my work ethic, and I knew that, and I know my partner's work ethic, and I knew that the extraordinary effort would be there and was there, was there the whole time. And so, it's like, all right, those two things are in place. Like, I can expect miracles. Like, and I think that's really the way the universe works. And, so far so good. Like, things, it hasn't been easy. It's been, it's been a lot of work. But it's like, and I still have just the unwavering faith that, and I think that unwavering faith thing too just allowed me to really open up to, like, we're looking at a 395-ish unit community right now, and like, that's big time, and I think the faith thing of like standing in, like, this disaster is going to work out somehow. It also gives you access to, like, things might work out really, really well here too. Like, and we have a sign on our office door that I'm looking at right now. It says it's quite possible that things will turn out far better than you can imagine. So that's kind of the space we're in.
There's so much power behind that. If you look at what's the best case scenario that could happen versus what's the worst case scenario, how often does worst case scenario actually come to fruition? Like, a lot of people, I am going to harp on the pandemic, and particularly in my geography, a lot of people, kind of conspiracy theory world up in far north Idaho, right?
Yes.
And actually kind of even across the country at this point, like, people are having lots of these dialogues in their heads, but we get lost in the space, as you mentioned, between our ears, and we start having this, and a lot of people are gravitating towards those negative ideas and, worst case scenario. It's like, how many times I ask myself this question often: how many times does my worst case scenario actually come to life? And never has my worst case scenario actually come to life. I've had some really terrible experiences, but they've never been really the worst case scenario I can come up with in my imagination, versus what's the very best thing that could possibly come from this. And so often my best case scenario, is very limited compared to what transpires in life. It's like, oh my gosh, that came out so much better. And you're kind of experiencing that from the ashes of, this really difficult, development project. It's like, you persevered, you stuck through it. And now here's like, we're looking at 350 units plus, we're looking at these big things. We've already had these huge acquisitions this year. And it's like, the best is like even better than we can imagine oftentimes.
It is. I mean, I'd never 4 years ago, you would have told me that we would have closed over 350 units in basically 8 months. Actually less than that, like 6 months, from when we started closing our deals in Ohio and to where we are now, and then what we have under contract in the pipe. I wouldn't have believed it. I mean, to me, that's right there evidence that things work out far better than you can imagine. Like, we are in a really great space right now, and we're building, and we're reinvesting, and we're living skinny and all that stuff. We're in what I think of as a 3 to 5 year sprint of really setting things up for us so that we can do whatever we want with the rest of our lives, and whatever that looks like. And, for me, that's contribution and coaching and mentoring and that education piece. And that's one of the biggest parts of my big why is I want to be wildly successful to inspire and educate other people to be wildly successful. So,
I heard on a podcast, I was listening to Ed Milet's podcast when I was working out this morning. The episode was so good that even when I was on a bike training, I was like, I have to listen to it. Usually I need music, but I'm like, no, this is so good. And one of the things his guest said was, we need to be successful. it is everyone's responsibility to be successful so that we can
Yeah.
give back and do far more. It makes our life like add so much more to every part of our life. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tate,
And success can look, a lot of different ways for everybody. And just to remind listeners of that, look, don't put pressure on yourself around this, and don't compete with others around this. Success is yours to define and determine, and make sure that that you're serving yourself and your goals and your definition of success, and not at all bringing yourself down. I think that there's a real art to that.
I think that's really, thank you. That's such sage advice, because you have to be grounded, especially once you get into any niche, whether it's investing or a new hobby, whatever you're pursuing in life, you're going to start doing the comparison thing. And unless you understand what you want and define what success is for you, you're going to lose who you are and lose the vision that was actually taking you on the path.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And Tate, I love it. I love this conversation. But we have to wrap up. What is the number one best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah. So www.investwithgreenlight.com has everything you need to reach me, schedule an appointment with me. There's resources there. My ebook on becoming financially independent through apartment investing is downloadable there. So yeah, investwithgreenlight.com.
Awesome. Make sure you go check out Tate's website and get to know everybody there at Greenlight. And until next time, I do want to invite everyone to check out the book, The Alchemist. It has a lot to do with this entire conversation. And it's a fable. So if you have, kids at home of any age, this is a fantastic book. The audiobook is phenomenal. So I just want to highly encourage people to, listen to that book or read the book. I had to listen to it and buy the book because it was so good as we listened. But it will really just encourage you if you are in the throes of, that struggle part of your journey. It really provides a lot of clarity as to, just the rewards and what comes through those challenges that we face on our path. So I don't get any props or anything from recommending the book, but I do know it's extremely helpful for people of all ages, and I hope you check it out. Until next time, live big, love bigger. If you're embarrassed to answer the question, what are you reading? Or you're looking for a community to read with, the 5-week book and networking club is for you. The 5-week book and networking club helps readers of all kinds grow, learn, and connect with others in a really meaningful way. There's no commitment. Join the group book by book. If you're the person known for not finishing the books you start, or maybe you're a self-proclaimed slow reader or can't decide which book to read next, join us. I provide a reading schedule broken into 5 simple days of reading with an average of 7 pages a day. Reading is such a powerful way to expand your thinking, understanding, and skill base. And reading with the 5-week book and networking club will also build your network and affect your business. In 2021, the 5-week book and networking club completed 8 books and 40 weeks of reading and networking. Head over to julieholly.com to connect so you don't miss out on the next book.